The Universe's Cruel Test: Meeting Someone You Can't Be With, Carl Jung. There's a rare kind of encounter that doesn't just happen to you, it happens through you. It doesn't fit into your schedule, your plans, or even your logic. It interrupts. It disrupts. And it haunts you. It's the moment you meet someone who reflects back your soul with terrifying clarity, but you cannot stay with them. The relationship is impossible. Maybe it's timing. Maybe it's circumstance. Maybe it's something you can't even name. But the connection feels too deep, too real to ignore. It feels like a message, or worse, a test. Carl Jung, one of the greatest psychological minds of the 20th century, would argue this is no coincidence. It is, in fact, a deliberate confrontation with yourself, and it often arrives cloaked as love. Jung believed the universe doesn't care much for your comfort, it wants your growth. And growth is violent. It tears apart the false parts of you so something more whole can emerge. When you meet someone who awakens something so raw and undeniable inside you, it's not about romance. It's about transformation. They are what Jung would call an anima or animus projection, a mirror of your deepest unconscious. A symbol, not just a person. You don't fall in love with them, you fall in love with the version of yourself they awaken. But here's the painful twist: the very intensity of the connection often signals that it's not meant to be permanent. Because permanence isn't the point, awakening is.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
And yet we resist this. We crave stories with neat endings. We want soulmates, not symbols. We want closure, not questions. But the universe isn't a romantic novelist, it's a philosopher. And when it sends you someone you can't be with, it's not punishing you. It's asking you, what are you going to do with this depth? Will you use it to uncover who you are? Or will you use it to torment yourself with fantasies of what might have been? Most people choose the latter. They romanticize the pain. They replay the moments. They turn the person into a myth and get stuck worshipping the loss. But Jung would warn you, if you get lost in the projection, you miss the invitation, because the person you met wasn't the answer. They were the question. Let's be brutally honest. You didn't meet them by accident. You met them the moment you were ready to see a part of yourself that you've spent your whole life avoiding. Maybe they made you feel understood in a way that no one else has. Maybe they brought up emotions you've buried for decades. Maybe they called you out silently, with their presence on every mask you've been wearing. That's not romance. That's revelation. And if you're brave enough, you'll ask yourself, why did they unlock something I thought was dead in me? What part of me are they reflecting that I haven't dared to face on my own? Carl Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Meeting someone you can't be with is one of those moments where fate knocks, but it's not offering a prize. It's offering a mirror. You can either stare into it or shatter it trying to forget. And this is where most of us fail the test. We become obsessed with the person, when the real work is to become obsessed with the shadow they awakened. The part of you that has been abandoned, silenced, ignored. The part that longs to be integrated not through them, but through you. But here's the trap. The ego doesn't like this. The ego wants a story, a resolution. The ego says, if I can just be with them, everything will make sense. But that's a lie. You're not supposed to have them. You're supposed to become who you were when you met them without needing them to stay. That's the cruel magic of the universe's test. It gives you a glimpse of what's possible, then takes it away. Not out of cruelty, but out of necessity. Because if you stayed in the comfort of that connection, you wouldn't do the inner work. You'd make them your home, instead of realizing your home was inside you all along. I think of it like this: you're walking through your life half asleep. Then suddenly you cross paths with someone who looks at you like they've known you for lifetimes. Something inside you lights up, you feel seen, understood. alive. And just when you start to believe it's real, they leave. Or you leave. Or something shatters it. And you're left devastated. But in that devastation, something else appears. The longing remains, but it begins to change. It morphs into self-inquiry. You start asking the questions you never asked before. You start confronting the parts of yourself that only they made visible. You start becoming. That's what Jung meant when he spoke about individuation, the painful, beautiful process of becoming whole. So let me ask you, who have you met that broke you open without ever staying? And what did they awaken in you that you're still afraid to claim? If you sit with that question long enough, you'll feel the burn of the test. It's not about letting go of them, it's about letting go of who you thought you had to be before you met them. The soul mirror, why you loved them more than made sense. There are people we love, and then there are people we recognize. And when you meet someone who feels like a mirror to your soul, love isn't something you choose, it's something that erupts. Sudden, unreasonable, timeless. You feel it before logic can react. You see them, and it's not just attraction or chemistry, it's more like a gravitational collapse. Something ancient stirs, and a memory you never lived but somehow know reawakens. Carl Jung would tell you this is no ordinary connection. This is a soul mirror, a living, breathing archetype of something buried deep in your unconscious. And when you fall for that kind of person, the experience won't fit into categories like relationship or crush. It defies them. It breaks them. Because what you're really encountering isn't just them. It's you. A part of you that's been asleep until now. Let's be honest. There's a terrifying beauty in loving someone who reflects the exact truth of your soul. They don't complete you, they reveal you. They don't fix you, they expose you. And that exposure is disorienting. You may have spent years constructing a version of yourself that the world accepts productive, rational, guarded. And then they come along, and with a single glance it all unravels. You begin to question everything. Why do I do what I do? Why am I living this way? Why have I silenced my heart for so long? This person becomes the axis around which your identity starts spinning. But it's not them you're spinning toward, it's your own core. The tragedy is that the deeper the love feels, the more likely it isn't meant to last. Because their role isn't to stay. It's to awaken. Jung's concept of the anima and animus helps us understand why this love feels so consuming, so sacred, so fated. According to Jung, we all carry within us a deep, unconscious image of the other, a perfect embodiment of the opposite qualities we lack, but yearn for. For a man, this is the anima, the feminine soul image. For a woman, the animus, the masculine soul image. These figures live in the shadows of our psyche, guiding our desires, shaping our dreams. And when someone in real life matches that image, when they unconsciously embody what we've been projecting inwardly, for years the connection is explosive. We don't just fall in love with them, we fall in love with our inner myth, our secret blueprint, our lost half. But here's the catch. That projection isn't sustainable. The person can't live up to the infinite expectations we place on them. They're not your salvation, they're a symbol. And when reality clashes with projection, we suffer. We mourn not just the loss of the person, but the collapse of everything they represented. And that's where most people get stuck. They confuse the soul mirror with their soulmate. They try to hold on to the projection, force it to become permanent. But Jung would say you're clinging to a lesson, not a life partner. You weren't supposed to build a future together. You were supposed to build a deeper self. So why does it feel so real, so undeniable? Because it is real, but not in the way we expect. This kind of love is real because it touches the eternal. It opens a door to the transcendent. When you're in it, you don't care about appearances or resumes or routines. You care about the essence, the feeling of being seen beneath the mask, the way your shadows stop hiding, the way time disappears. the way silence becomes sacred. That level of intimacy rewires you. Even if they leave, even if it ends, something in you has already shifted. You can't unsee what they showed you. You can't go back to pretending you don't know who you are. Let me ask you something brutally honest. Have you ever loved someone more than made sense? Not because of what they did or said, but because of what they unlocked. Did you ever feel like they were a door disguised as a person and stepping through them changed your entire reality? That's the soul mirror. It's a portal. And most people don't recognize it for what it is. They mistake it for the one. But it's not the one. It's the wound you needed to face. The light you weren't ready to carry alone. The depth you feared within yourself. And the moment they're gone, you're left shattered but not broken. The shattering was the point. The disintegration of your previous self was necessary, because only then can the authentic you begin to emerge. And that emergence isn't a straight line. It's grief. It's longing. It's temptation to chase them again. But it's also the slow realization that the love was never truly about them. It was about you remembering what you are capable of feeling, what your soul was always whispering beneath the noise. Jung would call this the beginning of individuation, the painful awakening that leads you not toward reunion, but toward inner integration. And so, the question now becomes, what do you do with all this love, all this intensity, once the mirror is gone? Love with nowhere to go, turning heartbreak into inner alchemy. What happens when the person who awakened something holy inside you vanishes, when the love remains but there's no one to hold it, no face to give it to, no voice to speak it toward? This is the part no one prepares you for, the haunting ache of love with nowhere to go. Not bitterness, not closure. Just a fullness that turns into silence. And yet, Carl Jung would say this moment is not the end of the story. It's the beginning of a far more profound transformation. Because now, stripped of the fantasy, left alone with your burning heart, the real work begins. You are standing at the threshold of inner alchemy, where longing is not wasted but transmuted. Where love, instead of being discarded, is absorbed into the deepest layers of your soul. This is the hidden truth behind heartbreak. It cracks you open so you can receive something greater than possession. Jung never saw pain as meaningless. In fact, he saw it as the only door to wholeness. When a powerful connection ends, your first instinct might be to numb it, to chase distractions, to replace what you lost, to run from the emptiness. But if you resist that urge, if you sit with the ache long enough, you begin to see that the emptiness is not a punishment. It's potential. The intensity you once directed outward is still within you. And now, with nowhere to go, it begins to turn inward, slowly, fiercely, quietly. That's how inner alchemy begins, not with peace, but with fire. This is not about getting over them. It's about getting into you. The parts of yourself that you ignored, repressed, or abandoned now have space to speak. The version of you who emerged during that connection, wide-eyed, unarmored, deeply alive, didn't disappear when they did. That version is still in you, waiting to be claimed. This is what Jung meant when he spoke of individuation, the painful, often solitary process of integrating every part of your psyche, the dark, the light, the wounded, the wild, into a self that is finally whole. And heartbreak, paradoxically, is often the catalyst that starts the journey. The reason this kind of love cuts so deeply is because it bypassed the ego. It didn't flatter you. It exposed you. And when it left, you were raw. There was no clean break, because it never felt like just a relationship, it felt like a revelation. And revelations don't fade like normal memories. They leave a mark. But that mark isn't a scar. It's a seed. You can water it with your tears, or you can ignore it and let it die. But if you choose the first, if you choose to stay present with the ache, instead of silencing it, you will grow into someone far deeper than you were before. Now think about this. Why did it take them to unlock that love inside you? Why couldn't you access that level of emotion on your own? Jung would say it's because they were never the source of the love, they were the mirror, the trigger, the sacred irritant that forced you to remember your own capacity for intensity, for presence, for divine hunger. Now that they're gone, the task is not to recreate them. It's to cultivate the qualities they mirrored. If they made you feel seen, learn to see yourself. If they awakened passion, channel it into your art, your voice, your work. If they broke your walls, keep them down, even if it hurts. This is how heartbreak becomes holy, when you stop demanding that love must always lead to possession, and instead allow it to lead to transformation. The love you have doesn't need to disappear, it needs to be repurposed. Jung believed that unlived emotion doesn't go away. It festers in the unconscious, showing up as projection, anxiety, resentment. But when you give that emotion a place to go, when you honor it, you reclaim your power. You realize that your love was never wasted. It was alchemy waiting to happen. So here's the question that matters now. What will you do with the love that no longer has a home outside of you? Will you let it poison you with longing? Or will you let it refine you into someone who no longer begs for love, but embodies it? Because the final transformation, the one Jung points to, is this: you don't just survive the loss. You become the very presence you thought you lost. You become the mirror. You become the source. Becoming the presence you lost, Jung's final step toward wholeness. There comes a moment, often quietly, after months of longing, searching, mourning, when you stop waiting for them to return. Not out of anger, not out of numbness, but because you've begun to realize something far more profound. You are the presence you've been aching for. This is the final transformation Carl Jung alluded to in his path of individuation. The moment when, having passed through the fire of loss and the depths of self-reflection, you no longer chase what once awakened you, because you are now awake. What once shattered you now shapes you, and the void they left behind, it has become sacred ground because you filled it with your own presence. This doesn't mean you stop loving them. That love still exists, but it changes its purpose. It becomes integrated, not dependent. It's no longer a reaching outward, it's a radiating inward. You stop needing their eyes to feel seen. You stop needing their voice to feel heard. You stop needing their body to feel whole. Because you've remembered a truth so many spend their entire lives avoiding. The people who awaken us were never meant to complete us. They were meant to point us back to ourselves. Jung taught that healing doesn't mean eliminating pain, it means giving it purpose. And the pain of meeting someone you couldn't be with has a purpose that echoes through your entire psyche. It forces you to confront the unloved parts of yourself. It drags them into the light. And if you stay with it, if you don't rush to replace, to forget, to move on, you begin to understand what they were really here to show you. Not romance, not possession, but mirrorhood. They were the sacred spark to ignite your inner fire. And now, that fire is yours to tend. This is where wholeness begins, not with someone choosing you, but with you choosing you. It sounds simple, even cliché, but when you've loved deeply and lost, choosing yourself can feel like the most impossible thing in the world. Because love makes you porous. It dissolves your edges, and when it's gone, you're left wondering if anything real remains. But here's the revelation Jung leads us to. The version of you that emerged in their presence is not gone. It was never them. It was always you. So you stop chasing closure. You stop waiting for answers. You stop trying to recreate what was never meant to be permanent. And in the stillness that follows, you begin to hear a new voice, the one that's been buried under projections, attachments, and longing. Your voice, your knowing, your center. And you realize, I never needed them to give me anything. I needed them to wake me up to everything I already am. This isn't about becoming hard, cold, or detached. True wholeness is not armor, it's openness without dependence. You can still cry when you think of them. You can still smile at the memories, but it's no longer about wanting them back. It's about honoring what they gave you by becoming what they helped you see. And when you do that, when you walk forward carrying the presence they once mirrored, you don't just heal, you evolve. And Carl Jung's final message was always about this kind of transformation, from unconscious longing to conscious wholeness, from fragmentation to integration, from dependency to sovereignty. So if you've loved someone you couldn't keep, let that be the beginning, not the end. Let their absence become the teacher you never expected. Let the pain shape you. Let the mirror remain inside you. Because in the end, the cruelest test the universe gives, meeting someone you can't be with, is also the most sacred invitation to become everything you thought you needed from them.